meeting a villain that matches your moves. Here's your look at the new Diamond Select Taskmaster Gallery Diorama PVC statue. Anthony Tony Masters realizes at a young age that he has photographic reflexes and grows up to become a career criminal, able to replicate superhero moves. He makes quite a bundle training and distributing hired help to the supervillain trade, and when he's not a hired combat instructor, he's a covert operative for government agencies. This gallery diorama of Taskmaster is based on his appearance in Marvel Comics, is made of high-quality PVC with detailed sculpting and collectible quality paint applications. A new release from Diamond Select? I think I'm up to the task. Before we get a closer look, that was bad. Before we get a closer look, though, at the Taskmaster PVC Gallery Diorama statue, that's a bit of a mouthful, I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that did provide this sample that we could have a look at in this video. Following to that, let's grab this disc of tape measure of mine. It's contained inside this disc, after all. We're going to first figure out how tall the Taskmaster statue stands. Now, technically his head isn't the highest point. I would say it's probably the arrows on the back of his quiver. That gives us a statue that's about 9 inches in height, or it's roughly about 22 centimeters tall. Picking this statue up, I noticed right away it was really quite heavy. Even though it's made of PVC plastic, don't let that fool the weight sometimes of how heavy these statues actually can get. Well, I don't think most of the weight is actually in the base, simply just because you're dealing with quite a hollow material here. I think most of the weight is actually coming from Taskmaster's cape, which seems to be the heaviest thing that's on this statue. Anyways, though, for the display base, we'll look at this first. You sort of got more of a pavement display, a pavement surface here that the character is running across. As you can see, he's actually leaning with more of his weight further forward, sort of ricocheting the bullets that are bouncing off the front of his shield. And as you can see, though, some of the bullets have also found their way actually onto the ground that he's running through as well. You can see several exploding bullets that actually have already hit the surface, and they've been nicely replicated here using sort of a more see-through translucent yellow plastic. And there's actually 2 points, one at the front and one in between his legs. Taskmaster is avoiding them all. There's nothing else other than that, other than some really interesting cracks and overall just interesting surface space to it. It kind of looks like a cooked steak. Although I wouldn't want to have a steak colored like this. I would probably want to be returning that back to the kitchen. You've got some interesting also browns that have been added around the side of it here too. And even though, again, like all of this is all just hollow on the bottom of it, it really does make for an interesting looking display stand that doesn't add a lot of visual distraction where you're not going to be looking and focusing your efforts at Taskmaster instead. I was like, for a character this colorful as Taskmaster, you really don't want to have a display base that challenges your attention. By keeping it gray like this, sort of an off-colored, that steak definitely would have to go back. By having it, though, this gray color with just a little hint of brown on the side, like I said, it doesn't distract you from the main subject, which is the Taskmaster above. The head sculpt for Taskmaster is quite good. I've always really liked the idea of a skull face inside of a hood. May have not something to do with perhaps the fact I also really like Skeletor too, which Taskmaster bears a very strong resemblance, not maybe in the color scheme, but certainly from his design. Head sculpt, like I said, is quite good. You can see just how nicely they've sculpted the face resembling the skull, and really how disappointing was Taskmaster in that solo standalone Black Widow movie. That was not Taskmaster at all. Not only the person that was underneath the mask, but the design of Taskmaster was poor. This is the way I really think that Taskmaster should have been in the movie. Maybe toned down the color scheme. Maybe it wasn't so much the blue, the oranges, and the whites. But I think they probably could have given a more modern take on still the Taskmaster design that we're looking at right here. Now, like I said, most of the way he's leaning forward, as of course he's holding back the bullets that are bouncing off the shield. Once again, they've done that by using that same translucent yellow plastic. And it's of varying heights, too, so they're not simply just taking the same mold and planting it anywhere they want to have it on the shield. There are slightly smaller ones, slightly more percular ones, and of course the longest of the three is closer to his head. The coloring on the shield matches the coloring of his costuming. The coloring actually is quite good on this figure. The only thing I would say, maybe looking at it, it's a lot of bright colors. And I think maybe there could have been an opportunity made somewhere on here where they could have added some slightly darker shades of all the colors that we're looking at here. Like, for example, the cape does have a little bit of additional airbrushing of the gray added on here, but I maybe would have added it just a slight shade darker. Doesn't seem to have as much of that, though, in the blue, nor does he have it here in the orange. I think, again, they could have darkened it slightly a bit more. The head sculpt, as good as I like it, while there is some lighter tones, I think there could have been also an opportunity to add some darker colors, certainly underneath his areas of his cheekbones and areas around his eyes. Not too dark that it would compete with the colors of the blackness of the inside sockets, but at the very least, they probably could have added a slightly darker gray to it. Still, though, gotta say, it's like a nice looking head sculpt. Again, you've got some additional gold here added to where the cape attaches to the front of his outfit. Some nice blues. I do actually like the blue that they've used, and it also seems like they've added some additional purple in there as well. So there is technically a darker shade happening here, but I probably would have added a little bit of also black in there too, because it almost kind of looks as if this is the first coat of paint that they've added, but they haven't added the necessary shadows. I get the fact that the character like this is really pulled from the pages of the comic book, and it succeeds certainly in that, but I think a darker color, just a little bit of shadowing also would have enriched the sculpting of this as well. On the back, he does have the quiver contained inside. It seems like he's got 4 arrows, none of which have been drawn out. He actually doesn't have anywhere on this, surprisingly, that he actually has a matching bow to go with those arrows. He does have a scabbard, though, down the side of his leg that's going to be holstering the sword that he has currently in his hand. The sword, I would say, represents the more fragile nature of this statue. Simply just because, again, like, if you can hear it, you could probably do this as much as you want. But just be careful, like, if a statue like this was to fall, the first thing that probably would be a casualty of that would be the sword itself. Some nice gold in there, also on the guard and the hilt, matches the gold that they used also on the snaps of the cape. And you got some additional brown here on the bandolier. I guess that would be a bandolier strap that he's got the front of his chest, and then of course he's got that matching color of brown. Several pockets there, also all around his belt buckle, that has the same matching logo that he has also on the front of his shield. Like I said, I really do like the look of this. This one actually turned out really, really nicely. Just to put this down, usually what I do at the end of these reviews is put the statue down and kind of just do a quick spin around, even though we're technically going to be really looking at this in final looks on a turntable after all anyways. I think really the only thing I would have added as an opportunity to enrich the experience of this statue is, again, just adding some additional coloring, some darker shadowing. Not to the point where it's jet black. I mean, obviously that would just ruin the statue, and you really wouldn't want too dark of a color that would compete with the sculpting of what they've already succeeded here. They have actually succeeded with a really nice looking Taskmaster statue. I think I'm only saying what could enrich this experience is by adding some additional shadowing, especially in the blue and the white. Other than that, though, a home run hit, if you ask me. Now, again, I'm not just saying that just because I like the idea of having skull faces inside of hoods. I know a lot of that has to do with Skeletor, but I've always been a big fan of Taskmaster in the comics, and certainly was disappointed with the Taskmaster that we actually did get in that solo standalone Black Widow movie. Just a show of hands, by the way, how many of you guys were actually disappointed with the look of Taskmaster? Oh, I didn't even have to finish. I was going to say in the Black Widow movie, look at how many hands are up right now. Would it be safe to say that Diamond Select has done a better service to Taskmaster as this gallery statue than the one we actually got? In that, yeah, everybody's nodding their head. I didn't have to finish that sentence. Liking the look of Taskmaster here. I get the idea. Yeah, if you're going to get a comic-looking costume, you have to modernize it to some extent in the movie. But Taskmaster didn't have to be so de-evolved to what we actually got in the film. That was not Taskmaster. At least if Taskmaster had the skeleton face. And it didn't even do that. It was just like a slick sort of domed face with a visor. It sort of looked like New Goblin from the Spider-Man 3 film, which I didn't even like the look of New Goblin either. Taskmaster was poor. What's not poor, though, is the look of Taskmaster here as a gallery statue. Quite heavy, too. Most of the weight, as already mentioned, is in the cape of Taskmaster. This one has a really neat pose going for it as well. And, you know, I did say this at the opener of this review, and I'll just reiterate this. One thing that Diamond does really well is deciding what kind of display bases go with these statues. If you're going to have a very colorful character like Taskmaster, then you don't want to equally have a very colorful-looking display stand. And they pulled the colors back quite a lot, keeping it kind of more just a very base bottom gray with some additional colors. Yeah, the texturing looks a little bit like an overcooked steak. Again, if you're going to ever get a steak, whether you're in a restaurant or at home, if you ever get a steak that's gray like this, don't eat it. not a good idea. But I do like the texturing. I like the surface terrain that they've added to the display base. Again, it doesn't compete. It only just accentuates the look of Taskmaster. The only thing I would have added, as already mentioned, is just, again, a little bit of that darker gray. You may already see some of it also at the bottom bases of his feet. In the soles, he actually has a little bit of gray. I would have liked a little more of that also in the cape and in the hood area of his cape. Other than that, though, really, really nice looking statue. Diamond, I think, has done a great job on this. Big thank you, though, to the folks over at Diamond Select that did provide the sample of the new gallery statue of Taskmaster. We can have a look at it in this video. What do you guys think of the statue? Let me know down below in the comment section. Is this something you guys would want to pick up for yourselves? Let me know down below in the comment section. And for your video question for today, I talked about how unhappy I was with the look of Taskmaster. I had high hopes when I heard they announced that Taskmaster was going to be in a Marvel film. Boy, did that underwhelming. But your video question for today is, of the modern design characters that we've gotten actually in live action Marvel films, what do you think was the most disappointing? It doesn't have to necessarily even be the designing of the costume, but what character do you think translated the worst to an actual live action Marvel film? Let me know down below in the comment section. And in the meantime, if you did like this video, why not hit it with a like? If you're loving the content that you're seeing and certainly want to stick around for more, you can certainly hit that subscribe button down below. You certainly as well can turn on that bell notification. And you certainly as well can also check out my playlist that's popping up at the very end of this video, covering off all the other Diamond Select Gallery statues I've looked at over the years, with many more to follow. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.